Hello, what's up, everybody? My name is I Don't Know Techno, and today I have some sad news. Yuzu has officially gone under, along with the 3DS emulator Citra. Now, if you don't know what Yuzu is a Switch emulator that came out in about, I think, 2018. They just officially lost their lawsuit against Nintendo on Wednesday for a few different reasons. Obviously, an emulator that emulates their current system is obviously not really a good idea. If you try to emulate a modern system that's out right now, obviously the company is not going to like you because you're basically making it so that people who like pirate have complete access to those games whenever they come out, if not before they come out sometimes, which is one of the big reasons Yuzu lost the lawsuit. Because last year, whenever Tears of the Kingdom came out, it was basically released a week early for anybody who used the Yuzu emulator. Nintendo did not like that, and they probably lost a lot of money. So according to the Yuzu's official wiki page, Yuzu, or Tropic Haze, settled the lawsuit with Nintendo of America for $2.4 million, which is a crazy amount. I know another big reason Nintendo was upset about it is because emulation is kind of it's a legal gray area for the most part, but you're not really supposed to try to make a profit off of it. I mean, you can, especially if you like build your own code and stuff like that. You're going to be looked at a lot more by these companies that you're making the emulation systems off. And with Yuzu, they had a Patreon that they had, and that was another big thing that I think really caused Nintendo of America to really look into it, because their Patreon, they were probably making thousands of dollars, which isn't a bad thing. You know, when you're developing a software and stuff like that, you got to pay your employees who are making the software for you, which makes sense. But at the same time, they basically put a target on their back by doing that. But yeah, really the big thing was the Tears of the Kingdom that happened last year. But the worst part about all this is that it wasn't just Yuzu that was affected. The same people who made Citra, the 3DS emulator, also made Yuzu, the Switch emulator. Because of that, if we look at both of their websites, they both have the "Hello Yuzers and Citra fans. We write to you today to inform you that Yuzu and Yuzu support of Citra are being discontinued effective immediately." And that's on both their sites. Both their sites have been taken down. You can't download them from the official sites anymore. Obviously, there's other ways to get them. It's the internet, but I can't condone that personally, and I can't put any links down below. Not that I would, but unfortunately, not only did Yuzu go down, but Citra went down, which is basically like not just the best 3DS emulator, but really just the only 3DS emulator. And it worked pretty well, you know, and that one made a little bit more sense since they don't make any 3DS games anymore. So it's a lot harder to get access to those games, or like with the Wii and stuff like that with Dolphin. It's a lot harder to get access to those games now. So it makes more sense to have those systems as emulators now, because now those games are in production. Whereas with Yuzu, Switch games are still being made to this day, you know. We still have a bunch of titles for the Switch coming out throughout the end of this year and probably early next year until hopefully the Switch 2 is announced. But that also put a big target on their back because the games are still in production. And if somebody leaks one of the games early, then that's it. They're losing so much money by not only having a software that can play their modern games, but also in a lot of cases, if you have a nice computer, you can play these games in like 4K and upscale these games and make them look even nicer than they would on the Switch. And that's not even including like the relighting and retexturing mods that they have too for a lot of these games, which makes the games look so much better than they would just on the, 720p small screen or the 1080p big screen on the Switch. And not saying that the Switch is bad. I like the Switch. It's one of my favorite things. Obviously, the Switch changed the whole video game environment, making a system that's a handheld and then also a system that you can play on your TV and stuff like that. That changed the whole ball game. You know, I mean, the Wii U walked so the Switch could run. We all know that. But it's just really upsetting. And it also made me think, why was Yuzu the first to go down compared to like these other people? Because I think it was 2 years ago, whenever Dolphin Emulator announced that they're going to be put on Steam, and then it just never happened, and people kind of like talked about it for a little bit, but there wasn't really an official statement on it. But now there's an official statement on Dolphin's page. I don't know how old this is. It's probably been on there for a little while. But according to Dolphin, they never got a DMCA or anything like that. Nintendo of America's lawyer said, well, if you want to put Dolphin on this, you have to get permission by Nintendo of America to be able to put this on there. Otherwise, you can't get DMCA. But they never actually got one, which is why nothing really happened to them. And then another big thing that people talked about whenever that big situation was happening was that the code that they were using was an encrypted code that was taken from the Wii. According to this, the Wii common key was taken from the actual system and plugged into Dolphin. And everybody's like, well, they can't do that. That's probably illegal. But no, according to their website at least, they say, oh, it's public, you know, it's always been public. So you're welcome to use that as code as much as you want to, because there isn't anything that you're not allowed to use it with unless, you know, you're pirating it. They still didn't bring down the ban hammer for Wii. And I think what's going to happen in the future, Yuzu is going to be, whenever the Switch 2 comes out or whenever the next system comes out, whether it's the Switch 2 or not, Yuzu or another software like that might come back into popularity a little bit, or might have development on it a little more. I already know some people, now that it's open source and people are available to use it, I'm sure people are going to add their own specific updates and try to optimize it as much as possible without having an actual paid development team. Once all this blows over for a year or two, we get a new console. I think development on a Yuzu 2, to say the least, is going to start happening now that games aren't going to be really in production anymore for the Switch. Once the games are out of production for the Switch, that's really when Nintendo kind of just lets it go. I don't want to say that, because they definitely bring down the ban hammer on some things, but they're also very selective on what they bring down the ban hammer on. Sometimes they'll bring it down on one thing, but not on the other thing, or they'll say they're going to threaten somebody like the Dolphin Emulator, but they don't actually do anything. They're not losing any money off Dolphin Emulator anymore because they don't make any Wii games, obviously, anymore. They don't make any Wii consoles anymore. You know, obviously they've ported some Wii games to the Switch, but those don't have a problem selling at all. Along with just like the Super Mario Galaxy being on a Switch, that was only a limited run, so they've printed all the ones they're going to print. Now they don't sell them anymore. All the ones that you get are usually going to be used, or they're going to be new, and which is going to be really rare. I don't know how you're going to find a new one. But any games like that, you know, people like an upscaled, newer version one as well. Like, I think the one on Switch looks a lot better than if somebody were to emulate it on Dolphin Emulator for Super Mario Galaxy. But like I said, they aren't losing any money. So obviously they're not going to have to worry about these other softwares as much as this. Whereas I'm sure they lost a lot of money on Tears of the Kingdom, which is really just the only, like, the biggest one. But that's not even including a bunch of, like, smaller games and stuff like that that people probably were pirating and emulating on Yuzu. And Yuzu, in their official statement, they said, Yuzu and its team has always been against piracy. We started the project in good faith, out of passion for Nintendo and its consoles and games, and we were not intending to cause harm. Which I don't really know how Yuzu is really the one to blame for this, because it's not like anybody on the team was condoning piracy, or that anybody was actually like selling any of like the game files and stuff like that. This is kind of an expected thing, and I'm honestly surprised that it didn't happen sooner. And it's not like the worst thing to happen in the world, because obviously the files for the software are still going to be out there. But Citra being included in that takedown is really one of the just hardest things to have to deal with, because Citra is really the only 3DS emulator. So losing that and one of the big emulators that we have nowadays, it's just, that was a big hit for us to take. So I just wanted to come on here today and talk about my opinion on the Yuzu lawsuit and what has transpired because of it, and explain what I think why Yuzu is the first really big emulator to get taken down. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next video.